Hi, Will Haler here from the Racing TV headquarters in London ahead of 3 fantastic days of jumps racing up at Aintree. The big feature, the Grand National on Saturday. Interesting race this year. I've got one I quite fancy for it, but we'll come on to that later. The race meeting starts on Thursday. The horse I fancy most on day one is Shishkin. He runs in the third race, the Aintree Bowl. He was flat at Cheltenham last time, but I often like at Aintree, I like a horse who I'm prepared to forgive a bad run at Cheltenham, whereas some of the other horses that have been running well all season, their form starts to plateau after a long season. Shishkin's had a kind of in and out season, ran really well at Ascot before Cheltenham, flopped at Cheltenham. I can see him bouncing back. They've taken the tongue tie off, and I like his chances a lot in the Aintree Bowl. Constitution Hill, the other real highlight on the first day of the meeting. This horse, unbeatable at 3,200 metres over hurdles. Really hard to imagine that he's not going to go in again. Zanahir's the one I like for the exacta. If you're looking for one to follow him home, I think he's just coming to the boil after, perhaps a different kind of season to some of the opposition. And I like the way he stayed on quite nicely in the Champion Hurdle last time. So he'd be my selection to follow Constitution Hill home in the exacta. Friday, the best bet for me I like there is Fakir Dudair. He's a horse who really comes alive at Aintree. He's got a great record on this particular course. I'm sure connections will have been thinking about this race all season long. He runs in the Melling Chase race 4 on Friday, so he'd be probably my idea of a best bet for there. There's one I like at a real price on Saturday, the second race, race 2, the Liverpool Hurdle. It's a 4,800 metre race. People will be talking about the Stayers Hurdle form, and they'll be looking at horses like Teahupu and Cider Burley and Flooring Porter and trying to unravel that form from Cheltenham. I just put a line through that really. I thought the Stayers Hurdle this year at Cheltenham was a mess of a race. I'd be looking at something like Monmoral at a massive price that missed Cheltenham, coming back to a meeting he's done really well at before. He's a much fresher horse than his rivals. He could be a real decent price. So Monmoral win and place for me in the Liverpool Hurdle race 2. And then of course the big one, the £1 million Randox Grand National race 6 on the card. Look, it's almost impossible to find the winner. 40 runners. There's all sorts of stats, trends that people will tell you. Grey horses have a bad record, or French bred horses have a bad. Ignore the stats. It's a race that keeps evolving. They've shortened the distance of the race. The fences aren't as stiff as they used to be. I think that renders all the stats and trends largely irrelevant. I really like the top weight any second now, and people will say a horse cannot defy that kind of weight. It's going to have a massive weight burden to carry. But he was third in this race 2 seasons ago. He was second last year. He is in arguably as good a form as he's ever been in his life, despite the fact he's 11 years old. And I don't think this is a great Grand National. There's horses towards the bottom of the weights that they're really average horses. Any second now knows exactly what to do in this race. He keeps himself out of trouble. He just jumps and gallops along, and then he's still going strong at the finish. He'll have been trained for this race all season long. I really like Any Second now. And people will say too much weight, but don't believe him. I think this horse can run a massive race, so he'd be my selection for the world's most famous jumps race, the Grand National. Anyway, whatever you're betting on across the 3 days of the Aintree Grand National meeting, all the best of luck. Let's get in there.